She was doomed by alien venom until a human said hell no. The scorching sand slipped through Captain Jake. Hot shot Malone's fingers, like a harsh reminder that Zephyr 9 wasn't a place for the faint of heart. Two suns blazed overhead, roasting the desert into a shimmering sea of light, sparkling like molten diamonds. Jake wiped the sweat from his brow, his combat armor clanking as he trudged forward, trying not to let his boots sink too deep into the dunes. 3 days on this godforsaken planet, and he'd already been yanked out of bed for a recon mission. Interspecies cooperation, his superiors called it, a historic chance for humanity to shine, they said. But right now, all Jake saw was sand, and more freaking sand. Command said the Zephyrins would meet me at these coordinates, Jake muttered, glancing at the holographic map flickering from his wrist device. The screen blinked, showing a red dot in the middle of the endless desert. But if this is the right spot, I'm stuck at a sand party with no invite. As a veteran of Earth's expeditionary force, Jake had set foot on all kinds of planets, from stinking swamp jungles to frozen moons colder than a deep freezer. But something about Zephyr 9 gave him the creeps. Maybe it was the massive mothership looming in the sky like an artificial moon, its shadow stretching across the desert like a warning. Humans ain't the big dogs here, pal. His radio crackled. Captain Malone. Report. Colonel Ramirez's voice cut through, sharp as a razor. No sign of the Zephyrins yet, Colonel. Just sand and heat trying to barbecue my ass. Jake smirked, picturing Ramirez scowling in his air-conditioned command center miles away. Keep looking. Orders from the top are to make contact with the locals. We need their know-how to survive that hellhole. Jake sighed, biting back a curse. Roger that, sir. He climbed a towering dune, squinting against the blinding glare. Then, as if the desert was pulling a prank, a small oasis appeared below. Weird, twisted trees pulsed with neon-like light, like something out of a cheap Vegas bar. In the center, a jade-green lake shimmered, reflecting the twin suns in a kaleidoscope of colors. Around the water stood a group of aliens, frozen like statues, their eyes locked on Jake as if he'd just strolled out of a B-movie. The Zephyrins looked humanish, but only enough to make you do a double-take. Their skin ranged from deep blue to crimson red, adorned with glowing veins that moved like living LEDs. The warriors were built like linebackers, muscles rippling under thin combat armor that looked like it could shoot lasers on command. They gripped rifles that hummed ominously, their faces cold as forged steel. But the one who stopped Jake in his tracks wasn't the warriors. It was a female Zephyrin by the lake, her skin a rich wine red, smooth as silk. Her jet black hair, shoulder length and glossy, looked like a starry night sky. Her form-fitting suit hugged curves that Jake swore could make a starship pilot crash into an asteroid. Her eyes, big and bright like twin rubies, locked onto him, and his heart skipped a beat. Jake took a deep breath, stepped forward, and raised his hands in a familiar peace gesture. Name's Captain Jake Malone, Earth Expeditionary Force. Who's in charge here? The Zephyrin woman glided forward. Her step so smooth it was like the sand was just clouds beneath her feet. I'm Kalia, diplomatic liaison of the Zephyrin High Council. Welcome to Zephyr 9, Captain. But I'm afraid you've arrived on a less than ideal day. Jake raised an eyebrow, flashing a half grin. Less than ideal? You mean besides this heat trying to fry me, there's more drama waiting? Before Kalia could answer, a bone-chilling hiss tore through the air. A creature like a massive python shot out from the glowing grass, its head lined with metallic, shimmering suckers instead of fangs. It zeroed in on Kalia. She screamed, collapsing into the sand as the creature sank its suckers into her calf. A fiery red mark spread across her wine-red skin, black veins creeping outward like something was eating her from the inside. The Zephyrin warriors backed away, faces twisted in horror. One shouted, Light Claw! No one survives its bite! Jake spun around, barking, What the hell are you guys doing just standing there? Help her! The tallest warrior with blue skin and eyes sharp as knives shook his head. The Light Claw's venom is death. She's done for. Jake glared at him, blood boiling. Done for, my ass. She's still breathing. which means she's got a shot. He dropped to his knees beside Kalia, ripping the fabric around her wound. The bite was swollen, glowing with an eerie green light, like the venom was dancing in her blood. Jake had no med kit, but memories of survival training in the Sahara flooded back. When a snake bites, sucking out the venom is the last resort, even if it's a bit old school. He glanced at Kalia, her ruby eyes dimming with pain. "Hang in there," he whispered. "I'm about to do something kind of crazy." Without hesitation, Jake leaned down, pressed his lips to the wound, and started sucking out the venom, spitting out mouthfuls of bitter, metallic liquid that tasted like burnt wiring. Each gulp made his tongue tingle, but he kept going. The Zephyrin warriors stood frozen, jaws dropped like he'd just swallowed a grenade. One muttered, "He's nuts. Nobody does that with a light claw." After a tense few minutes, Jake stopped, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand and spitting out a final mix of blood and venom. He looked down at Kalia, her breathing steadier, though still weak. Her ruby eyes fluttered open, staring at him with a mix of shock and gratitude. Why would you do that?" Her voice trembled like she couldn't believe she was still alive. Jake shrugged, hiding the relief flooding through him. "Back on Earth, we don't let friends die just because of some oversized snake. Plus, I didn't want to get chewed out by my boss for botching our first diplomatic meeting." Kalia let out a weak laugh, the sound like wind chimes in the desert. Jake's heart skipped another beat. The blue-skinned warrior stepped forward, his eyes now a mix of curiosity and respect. "I am General Zorak. No Zephyrin would dare do what you did. Perhaps humans aren't as frail as we thought." Jake shook his hand, feeling like he was gripping a rock. "Name's Jake. Good to meet you. Now let's get her to a dock before that snake comes back for round 2. They helped Kalia to her feet, her body leaning against Jake, warm in a way that felt oddly comforting against the desert's heat. As they headed toward the Zephyrin outpost, Jake caught her ruby eyes stealing glances at him, sparkling with curiosity and something softer. He leaned in, whispering, "You know, I figured our first meeting would be handshakes and paperwork, not playing cowboy with snake venom." Kalia smiled, her voice light as a breeze. "Perhaps, Captain Malone, the unexpected starts are the ones worth remembering." The Zephyrin outpost rose from the desert like a mirage, a cluster of gleaming towers linked by transparent bridges that glowed like crystal. They looked like they were forged from liquid light, reflecting the twin suns in a dazzling array of colors. Jake let out a low whistle, keeping his cool. "Not bad. If I opened a bar here, it'd be packed every night, Vegas style." Kalia, still weak, giggled. "Our architecture absorbs solar energy by day and glows by night. It's how we survive this harsh world." Jake nodded, winking. "Smart move. But I bet your energy bills are still through the roof." Zorak led them through an automatic door that slid open like a cell membrane. Inside, the cool air hit Jake like a gift from heaven, as if he'd stepped out of an oven and into an air-conditioned haven. "Medbay's this way," Zorak said, guiding them down a shimmering hallway. Jake supported Kalia, noticing she was lighter than he expected, like her bones were made of something softer than metal. In the medbay, a male Zephyrin with golden skin and intricate silver patterns looked up from a holographic screen. His eyes flicked to Kalia, then to Jake, his brows furrowing. "A light claw bite? How is she still alive?" Zorak's voice was low. "This human sucked the venom out with his mouth." The doctor, named Vren, stared at Jake like he just claimed he could fly. "You did what? Is your mouth made of steel or something?" Jake shrugged, stifling a grin at Vren's shock. "Just an old Earth trick, nothing fancy. But if you've got a high-tech scanner, check her out. I don't want her turning into some alien zombie." Vren scanned Kalia with a handheld device, his brows relaxing as he read the results. "Unbelievable. The venom levels in her blood are below lethal. Your primitive method saved her." Jake winked at Kalia. "See? Sometimes low-tech wins. You owe me a cold one, alien style." Kalia smiled, but her eyes held a flicker of worry. "Thank you, Jake, but I still need rest." Vren injected a shimmering serum into Kalia's leg, then turned to Zorak. "She'll recover, but she needs time. General, take this human to the command center. The council wants to meet him." Zorak nodded, motioning for Jake to follow. Come on, human. Don't keep the council waiting. They don't like it, and I don't like explaining. The command center was a tech nerd's dream, with holographic screens floating everywhere, displaying desert maps, ship orbits, and the massive mothership looming in the sky. A group of Zephyrin warriors stood around the screens, their eyes shifting from curiosity to suspicion as Jake walked in. Zorak's voice boomed. "This is Captain Jake Malone of Earth. Today he saved Kalia and proved humanity's worth." A warrior shorter than Zorak, but with shoulders like a linebacker, stepped forward. "So this is the human, smaller than I expected. I'm Captain Reich, Zorak's second-in-command." Jake shook his hand, feeling like he was squeezing a boulder. "Good to meet you, Reich. Don't worry about the size. I make up for it with charm and a badass plasma gun." Rick's laugh echoed like thunder, startling the room. "I like this guy. He's got Zephyrin humor." Zorak led Jake to a holographic table displaying a model of the joint Human-Zephyrin colony project. "Your people want to build a colony on Zephyr 9, but this desert doesn't welcome outsiders. We've survived generations by knowing its ways. You need to learn from us." Jake studied the model, nodding. "Your water filtration system's pretty slick. We could learn a thing or two. But I bet you're curious about our hyperdrive engines, right?" Zorak raised an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth twitching. "Indeed. Your ship speed has our scientists puzzled." The discussion heated up, covering everything from water systems to solar shields to dealing with local wildlife, like that damn snake that bit Kalia. Jake realized the Zephyrins were sharper and more open than he'd thought. But just as he started feeling like things were going smoothly, a shout echoed from the hallway. Kalia burst into the room, still in her tight-fitting med suit, her black hair a mess, but her ruby eyes blazing with determination. "Jake, we've got trouble!" Vren ran in behind her, looking like he'd been dragged from a press conference. "She shouldn't be out of bed. She needs rest." Jake raised an eyebrow, flashing a grin. "You okay, Kalia? Or did that snake come back for a rematch?" Kalia shot him a look, but her lips twitched. "Not the snake. Desert raiders. They're heading for the outpost, and they're packing high-tech weapons. Someone's supplying them." A deafening explosion shook the room, making the holographic screens flicker. Zorak roared, "Prepare defenses! Activate the shields!" Jake pulled his plasma gun from its holster, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "Guess the diplomatic meeting's on hold, huh? Good. I'm better at shooting than signing papers." Sand whipped through the air outside the outpost as the desert raiders attacked. Jake crouched behind a barricade, his plasma gun hot in his hands. Next to him, Reich muttered about how, "These damn raiders are ruining my day off." Jake peeked over the barricade, spotting shadowy figures riding six-legged beasts, their spiky fur glinting like metal porcupines. But what sent a chill down his spine was their weapons. Energy rifles firing deadly green beams, way more advanced than anything desert raiders should have. "These aren't your average bandits," Jake said, ducking as a beam melted a chunk of the barricade. "Those guns are military grade. Someone's playing dirty." Rick nodded, firing a shot that dropped a raider. "You're right. This isn't their first hit, but they're bolder this time, and there's more of them." Jake grinned, adrenaline pumping. "Bolder? Let's show him what bold looks like." He pulled a small device from his belt, gleaming like a metallic grenade. "Cover your ears, Reich. This is going to get loud." Rick gave him a skeptical look. "What the hell is that?" Jake activated the device. A sonic disruptor, his favorite toy from special ops training. A piercing wail erupted, sending the raiders' beasts into a frenzy, bucking their riders into the sand. Jake and Reich charged out, picking off the disoriented raiders in the chaos. In minutes, the raiders retreated, leaving behind one Jake had nabbed. The guy was scrawny with gray skin and 4 arms thrashing in energy cuffs. "Let me go, you filthy earth scum," he hissed. Jake leaned in, flashing a dangerous smile. "Filthy? I showered this morning, lavender soap and all. Spill it. Who's supplying your weapons?" The raider glared, but his fearful eyes betrayed him. "I ain't talking. They'll tear me apart." Jake shrugged, faking a sigh. "No talk? Guess I'll sing you some country tunes till you crack. Fair warning, my singing makes coyotes run for cover." Before the raider could respond, Kalia ran up, breathless, her ruby eyes wide with worry. "Jake, you hurt?" He winked, hiding the warm feeling her concern sparked. "Only my ego, 'cause you didn't call me handsome mid-battle." Kalia rolled her eyes, but her lips curved. "You really can't stay serious for 5 seconds, can you?" Zorak stepped forward, his expression grim. "This raider will talk, but what he says might change everything." Jake felt a chill, not from the desert, but from a gut feeling that things were about to get a whole lot messier. He glanced at Kalia, seeing the fire in her eyes, and knew he'd stumbled into an adventure bigger than anything he'd ever imagined. The Zephyrin outpost shook under a barrage of explosions, the swirling sand outside blotting out the blinding glare of the twin suns. Captain Jake, Hotshot Malone, stood in the command center, gripping his plasma gun, sweat dripping down his forehead. Beside him, General Zorak barked orders through his comms, his voice rumbling like thunder. Captain Reich, built like an NFL linebacker, was hunched over a holographic display, grumbling about how the Desert Raiders were ruining his damn day off. Kalia, fresh off cheating death thanks to Jake sucking venom out of her, stood close by, her ruby eyes flickering with worry and resolve. Jake glanced at the cuffed Desert Raider, a scrawny guy with gray skin and 4 arms thrashing against energy restraints. "All right, 4 arms," Jake said, his tone half teasing, half menacing. "I gave you a shot to jam with me on karaoke, but trust me, you don't want to hear my voice. Who's supplying your weapons? And don't feed me some BS about an alien arms dealer. I ain't got time for that nonsense." The raider glared, his eyes defiant but scared. "You don't get it, Earthman. If I talk, they'll rip me to shreds." Jake shrugged, leaning closer. "Rip you to shreds. Been there. Had my shirt torn by a house cat. I know the feeling. But if you don't spill, I'm handing you over to Rick here for questioning. Word is, he loves telling Zephyrin jokes, and I bet they're worse than my country music playlist." Reich let out a booming laugh that made the room jump. "Good one, human. But I don't do jokes. I just hit them till they talk." Before the raider could reply, a louder explosion rocked the floor. The holographic display flickered, showing a massive dust cloud on the horizon, with shapes moving way too fast for comfort. Zorak roared, "They're back! And they brought something bigger!" Jake peeked at the screen, a chill running down his spine. The raiders' 6-legged beasts were now hauling a machine that looked like a tank on steroids, gleaming with metallic sheen and bristling with cannons glowing a deadly green. "That ain't no tank," Jake muttered. "That's an alien megabot. Who's bankrolling these punks?" Kalia stepped closer, her voice tight. "They're not just hitting the outpost. They're targeting the energy reactor at the core. If that goes down, the whole colony's toast." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Reactor? I thought you guys ran on solar power." Kalia shook her head. "The suns power the architecture, but the reactor runs the shields and defenses. Without it, we're sitting ducks." Zorak turned to Jake, his eyes sharp. "Human, you proved you're worth saving Kalia. You in for the defense team, or are you just good for sucking venom and cracking jokes?" Jake flashed a dangerous grin. "I'm aces at 3 things: saving folks, shooting guns, and making raiders regret crashing the party." "Lead the way, General." Jake and Rick led a squad of Zephyrin warriors to the front line, where swirling sand choked the air. The raiders' 6-legged beasts charged, dragging the massive war machine behind them. Jake squinted, realizing it wasn't just an armored tank. It was a hybrid of Zephyrin tech and something weirder. Its cannons fired green energy beams, melting barricades like butter in a microwave. "These aren't your average raider toys," Jake said, dodging a beam that set the sand at his feet ablaze. "Someone's juicing them up, and I bet it's not some low-life arms dealer." Rick nodded, blasting a shot that dropped a beast. "You're right. Those weapons are high-grade military tech. Only the High Council has access to that stuff." Jake spun toward him, eyebrow raised. "The Council? You saying one of your big shots is playing both sides?" Rick didn't answer, but his look told Jake he'd hit a nerve. Jake pulled a small device from his belt, gleaming like a metallic grenade. "Cover your ears, Reich. I'm about to turn up the volume." Reich shot him a skeptical glance. "What, your sonic trick again?" That won't work on that machine. Jake smirked. Who said I'm reusing old tricks? This is the deluxe version, a mini EMP grenade, enough to make that bot cough for a few minutes. He chucked the grenade and a white flash erupted, freezing the war machine in its tracks, its cannons going dark. The beast panicked, tossing raiders into the sand. Jake and Rake rushed out, picking off the scrambling enemies. But the machine was only stunned, and minutes later, its cannons flared back to life. I hate high-tech crap, Jake muttered, ducking another beam. Reich, we gotta get inside that thing. If I'm right, it's got a control core. Shut that down, and the bot's toast. Reich stared at him like he'd suggested dancing with a light claw. Inside? You're insane. That thing's armored thicker than the outpost walls, Jake shrugged. Insane's my specialty. Stick with me, and you'll see. Using the desert terrain as cover, Jake led Reek and a few Zephyrin warriors to the machine's rear. He pulled out a small tool, like a pen but glowing red. Portable plasma cutter, he explained, catching Rick's stare. Borrowed it from the tech crew. Don't ask why I've got it. Rick shook his head, a grin creeping up. Humans are nuts. Jake sliced a small hole in the machine's armor, just big enough for him and Rick to slip through. Inside, the space was cramped, packed with glowing cables and a humming energy core. Jake inspected the core, spotting not just Zephyrin tech, but strange symbols etched on its surface. Nothing like he'd ever seen. This ain't your tech, Jake said, voice low. Someone's playing a bigger game than we thought. Rick nodded, but before he could reply, a hiss cut through the air. A raider, bigger than the rest, leaped from the shadows, 4 arms wielding 4 energy swords. Earthman, he snarled. You'll die for meddling. Jake dodged a slash, rolling across the metal floor. 4 arms? I only need 2 to send you packing. He drew his plasma gun, landing a shot in the raider's shoulder, making him stumble. Reich charged, pinning the raider with his brute strength, but the guy kept thrashing, one sword nearly slicing Jake. In a desperate move, Jake kicked the energy core, sending it shuddering with a small explosion. The machine outside froze, its systems shutting down. The raider roared, but Rick slapped energy cuffs on him. I'm starting to like working with you, human, Rick said, panting. Jake winked. Wait till I treat you to a burger. You'll be in love. They dragged the raider back to the outpost where tension hung thick as fog. Kalia ran up when she saw Jake, her ruby eyes wide with worry. You okay? I saw that machine go down, but... Jake raised a hand, grinning. Chill, girl. I just took out a giant robot and nabbed a 4-armed punk. Just another Tuesday for me. Kalia shot him a look, but her lips twitched. You really can't stay serious for 5 seconds, can you? Zorak led them to the brig, where the raider was strapped to a metal chair, looking beat but still defiant. Talk, Zorak growled. Who's supplying the weapons? Who's behind that machine? The raider sneered, his voice raspy. You think you're clever, but you're just pawns. Your council's got a traitor. High Commissioner Drenvar, he wants to sabotage the human alliance. Kalia gasped, her voice shaky. Drenvar? He's one of our most respected leaders. He couldn't... Jake crossed his arms, eyes narrowing. I've seen enough backstabbers to know reputation don't mean squat. If this guy's telling the truth, we need proof. Zorak nodded. Drenvar has a private office in the High Council Tower. If he's betraying us, there'll be evidence. Messages, transaction logs, plans. Kalia clenched her fists, her eyes fierce. I've got access to the tower as a diplomatic liaison, but Drenvar's office is locked down tight. Jake smirked. Locked down? I've snuck into bases with 3 layers of laser fences. An alien office is a cakewalk. They hatched a plan fast. Kalia would lead Jake into the High Council Tower, using her clearance to bypass security. Zorak would stage a distraction, a fake security drill to pull guards away. Rick, grumbling, agreed to stay back, guard the raider, and hold the outpost in case the raiders returned. As they left the command center, Kalia pulled Jake into a quiet corner, her voice low and serious. Jake, you don't have to do this. The council tower's dangerous, and especially if Drenvar's a traitor. Jake met her eyes, feeling a strange connection, like the light claw venom was still lingering in his blood. Kalia, I'm not the type to sit tight when someone's playing dirty. Besides, I promised to keep you out of trouble, didn't I? She smiled, but her eyes stayed worried. You're too reckless. But thank you. They boarded a small shuttle, zipping across the desert toward the High Council Tower, a massive structure piercing the sky, its peak brushing the clouds. Transparent bridges linking its spires gleamed like rainbows, and Jake couldn't help but blurt, "How the hell did you build this? It's fancier than a Vegas casino." Kalia laughed. "We call it the Tower of Light. It's the political and cultural heart of Zephyr 9. Jake winked. "If I make it through this, I want a private tour, guided by you." When they landed, Zorak triggered the security drill, sending guards scrambling. Kalia led Jake through shimmering hallways, where walls flowed with water in intricate channels, their soft hum masking their footsteps. "Drenvar's office is on the top floor," she whispered, "but we've only got a few minutes before the guards realize it's a false alarm." They stepped into a gravity elevator, the floating sensation making Jake queasy. "I prefer Earth elevators," he muttered. "This feels like flying without a seatbelt." Kalia smiled. "You'll get used to it, or not." The top floor was empty thanks to Zorak's diversion. Kalia led Jake to an ornate door carved with patterns, placing her hand on a scanner. It slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a lavish office. Glowing alien plants, ancient artifacts on display, and a desk with a floating holographic screen. "Watch the door," Kalia said, diving toward the desk. "I'll hack the system." Jake stood by the door, plasma gun ready, adrenaline pumping. Through a weird connection, maybe the Venom, he felt Kalia's tension as she swiped through the holographic interface. "Find anything?" he asked. Kalia nodded, her voice trembling with anger. "Yeah, messages to the raiders, weapons contracts, and holy crap, he's got a plan to blow the reactor." Before Jake could respond, a violent tremor shook the tower. This wasn't Zorak's fake alarm. Something bigger was happening. Kalia spun around, eyes wide. "That's not a drill. Something's going on underground." Jake felt a strange tingle in his blood, like when he'd sucked the venom from Kalia. "You ever hear of anything living under the sand? Something big?" Kalia nodded, her voice shaky. "Legends speak of the Krythar, ancient creatures sleeping beneath the desert. They only wake when disturbed by massive vibrations, like from colony construction machines." Jake smirked, though his gut tightened. "And let me guess, Drenvar knew about them. He's waking them up to tank the Alliance." Kalia quickly copied the data to a small device, but the tremors grew stronger. A chilling screech echoed from below, like 1,000 light claws hissing at once. Jake grabbed her hand, pulling her out of the room. "We gotta move. If those Krythar things are waking up, I don't want to be stuck in this fancy tower when it collapses." They raced down the elevator, but when the doors opened, chaos greeted them. Zephyrin warriors fought massive creatures crawling from the floor. Krythar, the size of semi-trucks, with shimmering armored shells and dozens of dagger-like legs. They had no eyes, just spinning mouths full of buzzsaw teeth. Jake fired a shot, but the plasma beam only annoyed one, leaving it unscathed. "Damn it," Jake muttered. "My gun's a toy against these things." Kalia yanked him into a side hallway. "We need to get to the council chamber. The leaders are there, and we have to show them Drenvar's evidence." They sprinted through trembling corridors, the Krythar's roars echoing behind. Jake felt the weird tingle in his blood grow stronger, like the light claw venom was reacting to the Krythar. "Kalia," he said, voice urgent, "that's snake venom. You know if it's got anything to do with these Krythar?" She stopped, eyes wide. "Legends say our ancestors used light claw venom to repel Krythar. It's the only thing they fear." Jake grinned. "So I've got a secret weapon in my blood? Sweet, but I'm not sucking venom again." They reached the council chamber, where Zephyrin leaders were arguing fiercely. High Commissioner Drenvar, a tall Zephyrin with deep purple skin and intricate silver patterns, stood at the center, his voice booming with authority. "We must evacuate. The Krythar are an accident caused by human machines." Kalia stormed in, her voice cutting like a blade. "Not an accident, Drenvar. You woke them on purpose." The room went silent, all eyes on Kalia and Jake. Drenvar sneered, but panic flickered in his eyes. Liaison, Kalia, you dare accuse me? And you bring this human into the council chamber? Jake stepped forward, arms crossed. Accuse? I've got proof you've been arming raiders and waking monsters to screw the human alliance. Want to see it, or should I sing it in country lyrics for you? Kalia plugged the data device into the central system, and the holographic display lit up with everything. Messages to the raiders, weapons contracts, and notes on triggering the Krythar to destroy the human colony. The leaders murmured, their shock turning to fury. Drenvar backed away, his voice trembling. You don't understand. Humans will ruin our civilization. I was protecting Zephyr 9. Jake shook his head. Protecting it by unleashing ancient monsters on your people? You need a refresher on leadership, buddy? Before the guards could grab Drenvar, a massive explosion rocked the room. A giant Krythar burst through the wall, its buzzsaw mouth roaring like a storm. The leaders screamed, scattering. Jake pulled Kalia back, firing at the beast, but the plasma shots only pissed it off. Kalia, the Venom, Jake yelled. If it scares these things, I need a way to use it now. Kalia grabbed his hand, her eyes fierce. The medbay has light claw samples. We can extract the venom. But you can't suck it again. It'll kill you. Jake grinned, heart pounding. I'm not sucking. I've got a better idea. But I need you and Zorak to get me to the medbay. You in? She nodded, and through their strange connection, Jake felt her absolute trust. Together, she said, voice steady. The High Council tower shook like the whole damn Zephyr 9 desert was throwing a tantrum. Jake hotshot Malone gripped Kalia's hand, yanking her out of the council chamber as a massive Krythar smashed through the wall, its buzzsaw mouth spinning like a death machine. Zephyrin leaders scattered, their screams mixing with the ancient monster's roars into a chaotic symphony. Jake unloaded his plasma gun, but the beams only ticked off the Krythar, its shimmering armor shrugging off the shots like they were spitballs. I hate monsters that don't flinch at guns, Jake yelled, pulling Kalia into a side hallway. Her ruby eyes flashed with fear, but also grit. Through some weird connection, probably that light claw venom still in his system, Jake could feel her emotions. Worry for her people, trust in him, and something deeper he wasn't ready to name. Medbay, Kalia said, her voice urgent. We need light claw samples. If the venom really repels Krythar, it's our only shot. Jake smirked, heart pounding. You know, I'm starting to feel like the lead in a low-budget action flick. Let's move before these freaks turn this tower into rubble. General Zorak barreled in from another hallway, his battle armor scratched to hell, but his eyes sharp. Human, what's your plan? We can't shoot Krythar down with standard weapons. Jake raised a hand, signaling calm. I ain't shooting. I'm gonna make them run scared with the one thing they're afraid of, Venom. But I need to hit the medbay, and I need you to clear the way. Zorak nodded, no hesitation. Follow me, but if you die, I'm not writing the report to explain it. Jake laughed. Relax, General. I'm not checking out before I try some of that alien grub you guys keep hyping up. The trek to the medbay was a race against death. The Tower of Light's glowing corridors were now choked with dust and debris, the Krythar's roars echoing everywhere. Jake, Kalia, and Zorak dodged smaller Krythar, car-sized mini versions that could still rip through metal like paper. Jake blasted one, but each shot only slowed them for a second. These things are like alien cockroaches, Jake grumbled, ducking a dagger-like leg stabbing from the ceiling. Who built this planet with nothing but monsters? Kalia, running beside him, managed a strained smile. Zephyr 9 wasn't always like this. The Krythar slept for thousands of years, until Drenvar and the colony's machines woke them up. Jake shot her a look. Remind me to never sign up for diplomacy again. I'd rather shoot than sign contracts. They finally reached the medbay, a mess of scattered equipment and injured warriors. Doc Vren was still there, patching up fighters. He looked up, eyes wide as the trio burst in. What are you doing here? Krythar tore up the lower levels. Jake raised a hand. No time to chat, Doc. Where's the light claw samples? I need venom, stat. Vren pointed to a reinforced door in the corner. In the secure vault. But what are you going to do with it? That stuff will kill you if you touch it again. Jake grinned, feeling the venom in his blood tingling. like it knew the Krythar were close. I'm not drinking it. I'm turning it into a weapon. You said the venom's the only thing Krythar fear, right, Kalia? She nodded, hope sparking in her eyes. Yes, but we need a lot of it and a way to spread it. Zorak crossed his arms, voice low. The tower's environmental system can mist anything through the vents. If we get enough venom, we can blanket the whole place. Vren opened the vault, revealing light claws sealed in clear tubes, their metallic suckers glinting. Jake felt a jolt down his spine, like his body was reliving sucking venom from Kalia. All right, he said, voice steady. One more thing. I need my blood. The venom changed when I saved Kalia. It might be the key to making this work. Vren stared like Jake had just claimed he was Superman. Your blood? You're nuts. You already lost blood sucking out that venom. Taking more could kill you, Jake shrugged. Danger's my middle name. Well, actually, it's Michael, but Danger sounds cooler. Do it, Doc. Vren reluctantly drew Jake's blood while Kalia and Zorak prepped the venom extraction gear. Through their weird connection, Jake felt Kalia's worry, like she was scared of losing him. He grabbed her hand, whispering, Don't sweat it. I'm too stubborn to let some Krythar take me out. I'll be fine. She squeezed his hand, her ruby eyes brimming with emotion. You better keep that promise, Jake Malone. I'm not writing a report explaining why you died. While Vren and Kalia mixed the venom with Jake's blood, Zorak radioed the human colony. We need backup, he said, voice tense. Human blood, as much as you can spare. If Malone's plan works, we can save Zephyr 9. Jake raised an eyebrow. Didn't expect to become the galaxy's blood bank. Any medals for this? Zorak shot him a look, but his mouth twitched. Survive first, human. Then we'll talk medals, or maybe a glass of Zephyrin wine. Within an hour, shuttles from the human colony landed at the tower, bringing med teams and dozens of volunteers ready to donate blood. Jake watched them, engineers, soldiers, all jumping in without hesitation when they heard his crazy plan. A red-headed Earth nurse with a no-nonsense attitude cracked a joke while drawing his blood. You're a drama magnet, Captain. Next time, call me before you pull the hero card, all right? Jake chuckled. You signing up as my drama manager yet? Under Vren's guidance, the human blood was mixed with the venom, creating a shimmering blue compound that smelled like burnt metal. The same stuff Jake had spat out saving Kalia. Vren tested it, eyes lighting up. It's stable. Human blood has a unique property that neutralizes the venom's toxicity, but keeps its Krythar-repelling power. This is a damn miracle, Jake winked. Miracles are humanity's specialty, Doc. Now get it into the environmental system. Kalia led them to the Environmental Control Center, a room packed with holographic screens and glowing conduits. The Krythar's roars grew closer, shaking the floor. Jake felt the venom in his blood burning, like it sensed the monsters coming. Why do I feel like I'm the star of an alien horror flick? He muttered. Kalia smiled, though her hands shook as she programmed the system. If this is a movie, you're the hero who always survives. Jake grabbed her hand, their connection stronger than ever. Then you're my co-star. Let's make this epic. They loaded the compound into the system, and Kalia hit the activation button. A fine mist sprayed from the vents, spreading through the tower. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a piercing screech echoed from below, like the Krythar were freaking out. Jake checked the monitors, watching the massive creatures recoil, thrash, and burrow back into the sand, leaving gaping holes in the floor. Hell yeah, it worked, Jake shouted, fist pumping the air. Humanity for the win, baby. Zorak stared, a mix of shock and respect in his eyes. I'm starting to get why you humans are so damn weird. Kalia threw her arms around Jake, hugging him like she was afraid he'd vanish. You did it, she whispered, voice choking. You saved us. Jake pulled her close, grinning. We did it, Kalia. Humans, Zephyrins, and a dash of crazy venom. 3 days later, the Tower of Light was on the mend. Repair crews worked non-stop to patch Krythar-sized holes, while Zephyrin scientists studied the venom compound for long-term defense. High Commissioner Drenvar was hauled before the High Council, stripped of his titles, and exiled to a remote colony for treason. Evidence from his office, plus the raiders' testimony, exposed his plot. sabotage the human-Zephyrin alliance to cling to power. Jake stood on a tower balcony, watching the twin suns set, painting the sky in blazing orange and purple. Kalia appeared beside him, her wine-red skin glowing in the dusk. She'd fully recovered, her black hair neatly braided, but her ruby eyes still held that warmth when she looked at him. "The council's made me the official liaison to the human colony," she said, leaning on the railing. "Seems you made quite an impression." Jake shrugged, flashing a grin. "Just doing what I do best, saving the girl, shooting guns and scaring off monsters. You know, classic hero stuff." Kalia laughed, the sound like wind chimes. "So humble, Captain Malone." She stepped closer, her voice low and serious. "This connection between us, it's stronger since we made the compound. The scientists say your blood in the venom triggered a biological reaction, linking us on a deeper level." Jake met her gaze, feeling that invisible thread tying their minds and hearts. "So I'm stuck with you, huh? Could be worse." She glared, but her smile stayed. "You can't stay serious for 5 seconds, can you?" Jake took her hand, pulling her close. "I was serious once. When I decided to suck venom to save you, I'd do it again if I had to." She placed a hand on his chest, feeling his steady heartbeat. "You humans are strange, Jake. You'd risk everything, even for someone not your kind." Jake smiled, voice low. "That's what makes us special. We live hard, love big, and fight like there's no tomorrow." Kalia looked up, her lips brushing his in a soft, electric kiss, like they were crossing the boundaries of species and planets. When they pulled apart, the patterns on her skin glowed bright, like stars in Zephyr 9's sky. "That's how we show strong emotions," she whispered. Jake winked. "I dig it. Beats Earth fireworks any day." A soft cough broke the moment. Zorak stood at the balcony door, arms crossed, looking both stern and a bit awkward. "I hate to interrupt, but the human colony sent an invite. They want you to stay, Malone, as a military advisor. They're impressed with your show." Jake laughed. "Stay? I ain't going anywhere. Someone's got to make sure those Krythar don't come back and teach Reich how to eat a burger right." Kalia giggled, and Zorak shook his head, a smirk creeping up. "Humans," he muttered. "Crazy, but hard not to like." As the twin suns sank, Jake stood with Kalia, watching stars twinkle in the alien sky. A snap decision, sucking venom to save a stranger, had led him here, saving a civilization and finding a bond that crossed space and time. Humanity, with all its recklessness, humor, and heart, had proven it belonged in the cosmos. And as Kalia leaned into him, Jake knew that no matter how many planets or monsters lay out there, he'd found something worth fighting for, a shared future where humans and Zephyrins shone together.